see how it all worked. And for about a year and a half, I did that. I created, whatever I could find, commercials, short films, independent films, whatever it was. And I basically got tired of trying to look for a new job every, 2 weeks. So back when the Hollywood Reporter was a printed paper, there were ads in the back. There was an ad for a mailroom employee at a management company. And I got a job at a company called NBC Entertainment, which they're gone now, but at the time they were at Billy Crystal, Robin Williams, Woody Allen, the Beatles Affairs, deal with Disney. So I got a chance to actually see what management was, what production, what producing was. And from there, I went from company to company, ended up where I am now. But it was just really looking for a job that was a full-time job, and that was the one thing that I knew how to do was short videos and packages.
I had actually gotten my start in TV development. I had done a few internships at various networks, and then got into a professional program with Disney ABC development. And so when you asked me when I first started, all I knew is that I wanted to work with writers. And much like Spencer, I started out as an assistant and at an agency thinking, I'm not going to do this. But what I did see were really amazing agents who worked with writers and who worked with them developing their craft and either selling their projects from inception to completion or to just building their careers staffing on television shows.
So we often know, everyone kind of knows, hey, my next step or my big break they think is going to be their representation. It's kind of a known commodity in the industry that you build a bit of a portfolio and then you try and find someone out there to represent you. I see that a lot of people that they try and put together a ton before that, and some people that seem to jump right into it. So I wanted to know from your perspective, what stage in a career do you think someone should be approaching representation, looking for representation? How deep should their portfolio be? Let's start with the RV from the writer's side.
I didn't look for representation until I had 4 scripts, and there was a reason for that. That's not to say I didn't seek feedback. I did, and I sought feedback from people that were working in the industry. I got pretty good feedback early on. My first script, like most people's first scripts, didn't get the greatest response. But the second one did. But it was a small indie, and I knew it was a small indie, and I knew it wouldn't be, I knew there needed to be more. So the next script was something that was on a bigger scale. That one ended up getting optioned and was in development. But not until the 4th, I wrote another one that was much bigger scale. I wrote it more like a studio film. So I had this really sort of broad portfolio. I had a small comedy, a small drama, a bigger sort of con artist and crime heist movie, and then a really big sort of fantasy, big budget kind of thing. And then I went out to try to find somebody to write me. And it was an interesting process actually, because I had some interest in, and I guess we'll get into this a little bit more, but I had some interest in it, in representation. I met with a couple of managers, but didn't particularly like the direction. I asked some questions that I didn't like the answers, that I received. And then finally connected with one manager who really liked one of the scripts and was more interested in the script than he was in me at first, but wanted to read the other material, and once he read the other material, said, okay, I like the scope and the breadth of everything you write. I think you could write in a lot of different genres, I think you could write a lot of different things. And it was what I wanted to hear at the time. But I knew early on that you're always asked, what else do you have, right? And I think the broader you can, the more you can show, the better. So for me, it was fortunate.
I know that everyone's different as far as what they look for. At my company and where I work, we want to see 2 really good pieces of material. And that could be, 2 pilots, 2 features, a feature and a pilot. I've signed people off of like a great pilot and a short story, just 2 really good pieces of material. So it doesn't really matter how deep the portfolio is. It's more for me just having 2 great pieces. So you could have 3 or 4 scripts, but if 2 of them are great, that's kind of what I'm looking for.
I might be the outlier of this group here. Yes, it is good to have more than one thing, but I'm much more interested in what that one thing says. I'm more interested in having your one sample be your signature piece. It has to stand out, it has to be amazing. I'm really not interested in people who write 5 totally different things, because that to me says, I don't know who you are as an artist. The ideal thing is to have me rip off the front page of every script you write, and for me not to know who wrote it, but to probably say, the same author wrote the same writer wrote these 3 scripts, because it all comes from the same voice, the same perspective, the same artistry. And so I guess I would say it doesn't really matter the number. I just want to see one amazing piece of material that says who you are as an artist and a person, and to give me an indication of the kind of things you're going to do in your career.
Can I add one thing to that too? Because I think what you said is really important. I want to just add something to it. As far as being able to write lots of different genres, I realize that most writers probably can write more than one thing, but I think that it's important to pick a lane at the beginning. Just kind of to piggyback on what I was saying, like, become the master of one thing, and then once you get really good at one thing and are working in that, people will let you do whatever you want. So I think that it's important to like I said, I'm sure you can write more than one genre, but pick a thing that you're great at and make that your primary focus at the beginning.
And this is interesting because I mentioned the 2 reps that I kind of shied away from signing with. That's exactly what they wanted. They wanted to know they liked one particular script, oddly enough, different scripts, and one wanted to turn me into the indie drama writer. The other one wanted to turn me into the crime writer, the crime heist writer. When I met with my manager, he's been in the business for 30 years. He was an agent. He was one of the founders of Endeavor that ended up now William Morris Endeavor. He's been around forever. He's seen it all. He knows it all. And he just said to me, this is different. I mean, I'm telling you, this is totally different from what is normal. But he said to me, I asked him the question I asked the other 2 managers. I said, how do you see me? And he said, I see you by your voice is in every one of these scripts. And he goes, and I really got to tell you, because there may come a time where I tell you, because we have some success with something, that you should kind of go into that lane a little bit. But for the time being, like we're passionate about, and until we sell something, until we go, just keep writing in your voice. So it's refreshing for me because I don't see myself in one lane really. Although it's starting to gravitate that way. Now it is. Now it's starting to gravitate a little bit that way. But that's this is true. This is what you'll hear often is pick a lane and stay in it. But also do it in your voice.
I think like the James Wan, for example, started off as indie horror. Now he's doing Aquaman. But that's going to be a different version of Aquaman. Lord Miller started off by doing weird animated comedies. They did Star Wars. And you can tell by watching that movie the scenes that Lord Miller directed because it's their voice. So whatever you do, you can maybe start off in a certain field, but your artistry should shine through no matter what you do.
When a writer, an actor, or director is ready to start approaching agents and managers looking for representation, what are the best ways for them to approach you? What are kind of where do you see the most success? How diverse is it in the way that they approach? And just any general tips or advice for how someone that's built that portfolio can reach you and maybe get that script in your hands or get that reel over to you.
Look, I get a lot of emails from random people, and I don't have time to look at them all. You know what I mean? I try to look as many as I can. It's easier with an actor because I can just look at their picture and resume real fast. With the writers, a little different. The best way is always through a referral. That's always the best. So if somebody that I work with, someone that I know says, "Look, I read someone that's really good. I should check them out." I'll read it. Or look at this actor or whatever. I'll always look at a referral that way. But I also go to Pitch Fest. I went to a Pitch Fest last weekend, and I do Pitch Fest online, just looking for interesting ideas. So there are places. Stage 32 is one of many, but there are lots of places where you can do things like that to read, potential ideas. And it's easier there because I'm not just getting random emails. It's like an organized situation where I'm there to read pitches. But really, by referral is always the best way.
I've gotten personal letters sent to my home before. Don't do that. It's creepy and weird. And I am not legally allowed to read anything you send me via cold email, so just don't. I wish it was easy as finding my email and sending it to me, but I just, we're simply not allowed to read that. So the key is to network, I get all of my potential clients from referrals, and to be a good person and cool and fun, and keep staying out there. And hopefully someone you know will refer you to a great manager agent. Yeah, absolutely.
I get this in both angles because I started as a producer before I was a writer, so I had people submitting scripts to me all the time, and the innovative ways that people get scripts to you, pretty wild. I think, it's interesting. But as the founder of Stage 32, people always ask me, when you're an entrepreneur, they always say you build something because you see a need. I built this platform for me. I mean, seriously, I did, because I understood the importance of relationships and the importance of having champions. It means everything in this business. And, I was on Twitter for a little while. I'm on Twitter, but I was, on Twitter to try to meet people you can and everything like that, because there's a million people that are, a million writers, a million actors that are hitting people that matter on Twitter, people that can move the needle. And, after a while, that becomes white noise. On Facebook, everything was diluted for me. So I wanted to have a platform that was concentrated with creatives, where we're all looking to do the same thing. Everybody has a need. Producers are looking for screenplays, filmmakers are looking for actors, on and on and on. And ultimately, at the end of the day, this platform started with 100 of my industry friends, and now there's over 500,000 people worldwide. And every time I come to something like this, I'll get people that'll come up to me and they'll say, man, I love the platform, but I don't really use it that much. And I sit there and it's almost like it's funny. It's like, it's not that they're like apologizing to me, but I kind of sit there and go, I don't give a shit. I really don't. That's on you, because I have seen over the last 7 years the successes from people who have used the platform day in and day out to make connections. And I'll take the platform away. I've also seen it, having been out here as long as I have, the people that I meet at these festivals and the people that go to the panels and go to the parties and they just network and build these relationships. And by the way, I prefer to call building relationships than networking, because it really is a relationship business. It's all about finding those champions and those people that will refer to these guys, because the voice of a trusted source for you guys means more than anything. If somebody is putting their reputation on the line to vouch for you, that carries a lot of weight. So that's why I can't stress it enough. Everything good that has happened to me from this business, seriously, has come from that platform. Because I work it like I'm not the owner. I work it like a writer and a producer and an actor every day.
We have a lot of, like RB mentioned, a lot of writers and actors and directors from all around the globe. Not everyone can be located in Los Angeles. We're all here together in Los Angeles, and it's awesome to be able to meet up with everyone. But some people, that's just not a viable option in whatever their current situation is. How do you feel about writers or directors or actors that are located away from you? Do you think that they need to move to a big city to get representation? And if they can't do that, what are their options from all these other places that aren't LA or New York?
I think it depends on your goal, like what you want to do. A huge majority of my business is staffing writers, putting them into writing rooms. If you want that as your goal, you have to be out here or in New York. But if you want to create and sell things, you can do that just about anywhere. I think the only thing is a willingness to come to LA or New York a few times a year to go out on a bevy of meetings after you've finished a short or a film or a project.
Basically the same answer.
Yeah.
If you want to be a television writer, you need to be in LA or New York. If you want to be an actor, you should be in LA or New York. And if you want to be a feature writer or write novels or whatever, then it's a different situation.
There's a lot of misunderstanding, especially obviously from people that are looking for representation. They haven't experienced it yet about the do's and don'ts of what an agent or a manager actually does for you or doesn't do for you. Some people think as soon as they get a manager, it's done. All they have to do is write, and it'll go into your hands, and you'll make magic happen, and they'll collect the check and cash it. But there's a lot that the writer has to do that they may not understand. What are the biggest misunderstandings about that relationship that you guys see working with your clients or RB or yourself when you were finding a manager? You want to take this?
Well, for me, I think, you hear all the time, oh my God, you have a manager, you must have it made. And it's totally not true. Oh, you must only have to concentrate on the writing now, and nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, it's become almost the opposite in a way. He was very focused on one particular project that he loved, and again, he comes from the agency side, so it's a little different because he has kind of the perspective of both, and works it that way in a strange way. But for the beginning of our relationship, it was taking this one script and working on really two scenes that he wanted to work on. Literally we worked on these two scenes for like a month and a half, and then he took the script out and he tried to find somebody that wanted to produce it, and he did. And while that was happening, I was still writing, but I was taking some of the material that he did like and taking it to my contacts and pushing it around. And then when I needed him to kind of jump in if there was interest, I used him to do that. But to give you an idea, I have a TV pilot right now that's at 2 networks. It's being reviewed at 2 networks. He had nothing to do with it. I had a contact at Zero Gravity. I'm not repped at Zero Gravity, but Zero Gravity, because they're a management company, they also produce. And this guy's a producer. And again, this was a relationship thing. Somebody referred me, a director that works with this particular manager producer, referred me to him and said, you guys really should sit down and you should read this thing because it's good. And we sat down and he said, look, he goes, obviously I'm not going to rep you, but you're already rep, but let's go bring this thing around if you're down with it. And then I went back to my manager and said, well, look, this is what we're going to do. And he said, when you need me, to come in from the bullpen, he goes, call me in. He goes, and I'll make that call if I need to make that call. So for me, it's been, it's great to have him, and it's great to use that as a way in the door, but it's not like, I just write something, put it on his lap, and go write the next thing. I'm out there pushing as much, if not harder than he is.
I think everyone works differently. The way that I work as a manager and the way that the company that I work at, we kind of all function is we're really hands-on with our writers. We start with, let me put a caveat on that. Our like A-list writers, like the big feature writers, we're not as involved early on because they're usually being hired by a studio or something, so that's a little different. But people that are just starting out, or people that are a little, less in their career, we're really hands-on from idea, because you don't want someone coming to you with an idea that's already out there. If it's already being done or it's already in production, that'll affect it. So, and it really depends on who the person is, what stage they're at in their career, and what they're looking for. So we start with an idea and go from that to finished script. And then, if it's time to go find an agent or it's time to go take it out, we do whatever needs to be done, but we're super hands-on, and we're actually probably a little different than your manager, really very involved in pretty much every aspect of, and then we work with the agents when they have an agent as a team to take a script out or, to get someone's
It is different because he is solo. It's not part of a big management company. He is on his own. He is extremely hands-on when we need to get down in the dirt about story or whatever. But there is, it's not, how can I explain this in a way? It's almost like being with like a brother in arms in a weird way. It's when you need him, he's hands-on, but as hands-on as you need him to be in a way. You know what I mean? If you call him up and you say, look, the third act, if it has to do with story, for example, the third act of this is shit. I know it's shit. Figure out what it is. He'll be like, give me a week and I'll, a couple of days and I'll be back here. If it's something like, hey, I just found out that company X is looking for this type of material. Do you want me to contact them? Or you want? Okay, I'll pick up the phone. I'll take care of that. But it's not, he's also very much like the other managers. He'll be like, give me 5 story ideas. If we're going to go to the next thing, give me 5 story ideas. And we talk about what's most marketable, what we think is best, or what we think, So he does a lot of that. But, it's when I'll initiate a lot of that, So, just to clarify.
What was the question again?
Misconceptions people have about the relationship with the agent.
Okay, so that's, I think what you were saying, whoever told you that you must have a manager right now, you've got it made in the shape, that's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. That's strange, because you haven't made anything or done anything yet. So I think a huge misconception when somebody signs with an agent is like, oh, well, I don't talk to them as much as my manager. And maybe it's because I'm at a boutique literary agency, but the best relationships I have with my clients are the ones where we talk, we text, we email. There's not really, the worst thing that I can hear from a client is, oh, I don't want to bother her with that. No, bother me. And if it's something that I don't really need to know about, it's fine. I'd rather have you bother me about it. But on that same note, another misconception, which I guess this is a new thing to me, if you have a rep, you're good as gold. No, the work just begins there, kind of like what you were saying. In addition to communicating with your reps a lot about what you're going to be writing next, things you're doing, networking, you have to hustle just as much as us. And again, like the best relationships I have are the ones where they're working hard and it makes me want to work harder. So you mentioned that your manager is like a partner to you, and that's really, I think, what the best relationships are. I think a misconception is, well, I'm not going to talk to my agent as much as my manager. Nope, bother me.
Spencer, you actually mentioned that sometimes your job with your client will be to partner them with an agent. Can you guys speak a little bit to the difference between a manager and an agent, how that affects which clients you work with or what you do with them, and just kind of what makes a difference, and do you need both a manager and an agent?
The lines have become a little bit blurred in the last 10 years or so. But managers usually, and it's not always the case, managers usually have a smaller client list, so you have a little bit more time, and I think that's probably where you talk to your manager more than the agent comes from. But definitely in the case of our clients, some of our clients talk to their agents all the time, and some of them don't. That's really, it's their personal preference. But we try to find work for our clients. We try to get them staffed on shows. We develop their scripts. When it comes to the development part of it, and I'm not really sure the way that you guys do it, but their agents don't get the script. We've gone through several drafts of it usually for our clients. We may do 1 draft, we may do 5 drafts before we even give it to the agent. So we're kind of the first person that it goes to, and we work on developing it until we feel like it's ready to go to the agent, just because we don't want to bother the agent, because they usually, like I said, have a bigger client list. So we do that kind of thing. We double team with the agents for all the staffing calls and trying to get people staffed on television shows. And then also it's like a career guidance thing in the way of like, well, which job should I take? If there's 2 jobs on the table, which one do we take and why? Which jobs do we turn down? It becomes more of like that kind of thing as well. On top of the finding work, it's starting to decide which is the right job at the right time and why.
I mean, agents are, licensed by the, talent agency board. So the negotiation parts of that is really handled by us. Not to say that managers can't necessarily negotiate, but you're not supposed to. Doesn't prevent them from doing it anyway. But a lot of my clients don't have managers, and when they don't, I step in and act as that person who can, see things through inception to idea. The ones that do have managers, I feel like, are amazing partnerships. Not always do I read every single draft. Sometimes I'll read a few. Sometimes I'll read everyone. It really depends, and it is client to client. But I do think that the lines are blurred. But for the I guess the purposes of this exercise, I think agents are a bit more transactional, whereas managers are a bit more day to day.
You guys both work at small boutique agencies, boutique management company. What's the difference between that versus a larger scale company like a APA or something like that? And how does that reflect with the writers? Would you suggest particular writers or at different points in their careers should seek one versus the other, or is it more just a personal preference thing? And then actors as well.
So look, I've only worked at small companies, so I can't really speak that much to the way big companies function. But I do know that a lot of the bigger management companies, and they're very good, and they serve a purpose. A lot of them operate kind of like little fiefdoms where everyone's responsible for their own clients. Whereas at the company that I work at, we work as a team. There's 4 managers there. We all work on every client. So we just cover the town for different things at different times. So it allows us to collaborate, and then we're using kind of the wealth of all of our connections and all of our relationships to help that particular client out. So that's how we do things, I guess, differently than the bigger management companies. And I do feel like it's never really about the company, it's more about the agent and the manager themselves, like the relationship you have with them, and if you feel like they can get things done for you. And people always say, well, the big companies have a farther reach, and in some cases that's true. But I do think that there are plenty of small companies that have great relationships. I mean, like we've been talking about networking and having those relationships. We do that just like you guys should do that as well. And it's having that far reach that allows us to kind of help get jobs. So, I just think that it's a personal preference. Some people like being in a big company because it has a fancy name, and some people don't really care about that and care more about the job that's being done. And it just comes down to, I think, the specific agent or manager, if you like the way that they deal with you and the job they're doing for you.
Yeah, I think you said it all. Much like yourself, I've only been at boutique literary agencies, and so while I wouldn't call APA a big agency, not to throw shade, but I do think that it is all about the person who's on your team and not about the place you are at. It's all about the person, and if they have a game plan for you, if there's no game plan in place, no way. And also, I think another good piece of advice when deciding where to go, don't just sign with the first person that comes knocking at your door. I know it's exciting, but you'll know when you meet that person who's going to be your teammate, kind of like what you were saying. And if they have a game plan in place, if they see you as an artist and they say, this is what I want to do for your career in a 1-year plan and a 10-year plan. Those are the kind of people that I think go for them, no matter where they are. Oh yeah.
And as Katt was saying, I think, and this is a question we always ask people when we meet with them, and this is someone that we're meeting because we're interested in signing them already. It's what do you want out of your career? What kind of career do you want? And I think that's an important question to ask yourselves, and that will grow and change as you grow and change. But it's important to hear where somebody sees themselves. I mean, we've met writers before, and you see them as one kind of writer, and they think that they're a different kind of writer, and then it's like, oh, well, your material doesn't really reflect what you think you are, and that can be an issue. So I think it's really important for you to know what you want out of your career and be able to articulate that to a potential rep and see if that person's the right fit for you.
You guys have all spoken a bit to sometimes writers will get into a particular niche, or RB, you said you kind of started, you were doing a lot of genres, and now you're more towards one. What do you do when the writer comes to you with material that you think, you spoke a bit about if it's too similar to something already in the market, but what if it's just something that might not be commercially viable or something that you personally aren't attached to, but the writer's, gung-ho for this thing? I know RB kind of has a story about a script that was kind of put away for a while, and now you're bringing it back out. I don't know if you could share that.
This was the second script that I was telling you about, which is a small indie. It had it's a small indie female protagonist, which 4 years ago, again, my manager said to me, "Oh, this is everything that everybody wants. A female protagonist, and you can make it for under, like, jokingly, obviously. Nobody wants to make this." Now it was, all people that have read it back then are like, pull it back out now. It's female empowerment. It's this and the other thing. But it's still a small indie, and these guys, I'm sure will agree, these are the hardest kind of films to make in a lot of ways. They're very difficult to go out and raise the money, attach talent to. Your foreign pre-sales may not be a factor, probably won't be a factor. So it became one of these things where, yeah, it's back out, and now we're pushing it around, but I'm really kind of attaching myself or trying to present it where I'm helping produce it. So I'm trying to find the financing, and again, my manager's in on this, He is, and he's taken it. I mean, he's taken it to, we just did. We took it to WME, to UTA, and to CAA. And there are various agents that are looking at it to try to attach a director, possibly an actress. But in the interim, while that's going on, because that can take forever, and it's a slog. I'm pushing it along to independent producers as well, and independent financiers as well. So it's one of these situations where there was material that people liked, but didn't really feel it fit the marketplace, and now it does fit the marketplace a little bit more, but there's still the obvious challenges to it.
Ultimately, it's our client's career, not our career. So if they're really passionate about something, I want them to be able to write that. But I may say to them, look, you're passionate about this. Put it aside for now, and let's work on what we need to get done now. Like if you're on you want a staffing sample by a certain date for staffing season as a writer for television, and it's like, yeah, you can write this cool little indie film, but let's get your staffing sample done first, and then work on this next. So I'll never tell someone not to do something unless there's something else out there in the marketplace, and then I may just tell them to wait. But if I just feel like if I'm not personally attached to it, that doesn't really much matter. It's really if they're passionate about it. But it's a matter of doing the right project at the right time. So if it's not the right time for that project, we'll just tell them that. And it doesn't mean throw it away. It just means put it in the drawer, register with WGA, put it in the drawer or a digital drawer, and go back to it when it's the right time.
I think this is a difficult question because it's kind of twofold. I don't know if you realize that, but the first, well, you did. The first question is like, if something's so niche, and I don't think it's sellable. So if something's so niche, that doesn't necessarily scare me away from it. In fact, I love selling weird niche things that kind of feel left of center. That's definitely something that's attractive to me. But then your second part is, if I am not attracted to that material, if I don't think it's sellable, which are that's definitely come across my way before. And I think to Spencer's point, you made that would be the exact advice I would give a client. Listen, this is your voice. I know you're incredibly passionate about this script. It's just not the right time. Let's focus on something we can do right now, and this will be kind of a longer play, much like your indie. Yeah, pretty much just repeated everything you guys both said.
I just want to say one thing. I love your response, because a lot of people, we hear from writers often that, again, they're so anxious to sign with somebody that they forget that it's their career. They want somebody to guide it. They don't want somebody. Sometimes they want somebody to just take it over. They don't want to think about the business and think about where they want to go, what they want to do with their career. And it's exactly what David said to me early on. He said, and I said to him, how do you see this unfolding? He said almost exactly what you said. He said, I'm never gonna tell you not to write something you're incredibly passionate about. He goes, what I'm going to tell you is whether I think it has a place in the market and whether it can be sold or not. And if you don't want to take that advice, and if that's fine. We'll see what we can do with it once it's done. But understand that I'm telling you that it may not, this may not fit, this may not work, this may not be the time, and I just don't want to be spending 6 months to a year, working and reworking, and then finding out the market's not going to respond to it. So I thought that was really interesting. And again, that's part of that partnership where it's sort of like you're getting that sort of sage advice, because he is out there every day trying to sell things, and that's his job. And he's out there trying to find things that are viable in the marketplace.
One more that's kind of specific to writers. You mentioned samples for shows for staffing season. A lot of people still are under the impression that they should be writing a spec script for a show that's on the air. Can you just discuss, this is probably very quick, but can you just talk about how that has changed in the industry?
Whatever you agree with.
Yeah, the answer I would assume across the board is no. The only real times where someone will want a spec is if you're applying to a program, like I know NBC, ABC, CBS, they all have kind of mentoring programs for young writers, and they will ask you, they will ask for a spec script first round. There is definite advantages to applying for those programs, but if you send me a potential agent a spec, sample of a show, there's not much I can do with it. And in that case, we'll see what we have. Oh yeah, please.
I agree with all that, of course, but as far as the spec thing goes, sometimes when somebody's first getting into writing and they've never written a script before, I would say try writing a spec of another show just to see if you like it. You know what I mean? So there was 1 or 2 times when a showrunner does ask for a spec. Some of our clients do have them, but for the most part, they don't. But it's not a terrible thing to have if it's a brand new thing for you, just because then you don't have to create a whole world. But I definitely think that if you really feel confident in your writing and you don't really need to kind of do a test run with someone else's show, then ignore the spec of another show and just, do it.
Since we're at Hollyshorts and it's a festival celebrating short films, we talked a little bit before, and we have our short film winners that will be premiering here, and showing here, and you both said, hey, we'd love to take a look at those. And I was wondering, how do you guys fit short films into your avenues to look for new writers? And that's something that's definitely changed over the last decade or two, with everything becoming much cheaper to do on a small scale. So how does that affect you looking for writers, directors, and actors?
I think with directors, if you're a writer-director, that's one thing. But I think if I'm looking at a short to view you as a director, it's got to be about, what are you trying to say with this? Does this come from a specific point of view? And what is your other kind of catalog you have, or what are the next things you're going to do? I think it also boils down to taste. Can I put you on? Can I take your short and send it to a showrunner of a CW show, or are you more of an HBO person? Are you more of an indie filmmaker, or are you a little more commercial? I think it depends, but if you're a writer-director and you have an amazing short, I would want to see something, maybe a longer script attached to that short, a fuller body for it.
I look at shorts all the time for different reasons. For actors, it's great because if you don't have a reel of, like, produced television shows or features on the big scale, a short's a great way to show somebody something. So that's I'll definitely look at a short film to look for an actor. Hopefully they've done more than one, but if someone has a great short film and they're really amazing in it, I'll meet them, depending on the actor themselves. For directors, pretty much the same thing. If you can say something with your film, one of our director clients has a short in this festival, and it's only her second short that she's done, and we looked at her 2 shorts. We met her. She's phenomenal. She happens to also be winning festivals all over the country with this short and getting all these prizes, so it was a pretty easy sign. But she was saying something with that short. We got her agent last week, and now she's being put up for episodic directing. So that's one way to look at somebody. We're like, we know what you do based on your couple shorts that you've done. We had a great conversation about what she wants out of her career, and we saw a place where we could help. So for a director, that makes sense to look at a short. For a writer, yeah, if someone wrote a short film, I'll definitely want to watch that, probably read the short, and then see another piece of material as well.
I just had one thing to say. Why didn't you tell me about this person?
This has changed dramatically over the last few years. I mean, when we first started Stage 32, we would send shorts to some of the executives we work with, and they were like, why the hell are you sending this to us? Now, I mean, this happened recently. I was supposed to have lunch with somebody from Circle of Confusion, and he literally called me and said, a short film just broke on Vimeo Short Film Corner, and it's gone viral, and I'm trying to get in touch with the filmmakers because they're amazing. And this is the thing. I mean, there's more content being created than ever before. There's more interesting stuff that's being created in the digital space than ever before. As a proof of concept to talent, or to, for material, for something that, you want it to be long form, I think it's a very interesting time to be making that kind of content.
Great. I want to get to Q&A soon, so I wanted to go around kind of one last time and ask if you have any last piece of advice that you might not have been able to get to, just something that you think is really helpful for a writer, or director, actor to hear when it comes to finding representation. Anybody want to start?
Look, as far as being a writer, I gave notes to somebody a week ago, and the script was in the wrong format. And I asked them if they've ever read a script before, and they said no, they just wrote one. So I'm like, it's crazy, right? So do your research, know what you're working on, know what kind of script you're writing, and read other things, understand what you're trying to say with your script. You should actually know what you're trying to say with your piece of material. And and understand if you're writing an hour-long drama, make sure that it's the right page length. I mean, these are silly things, but people don't always do that. So it's really just like be aware of what you're working on and make sure that it fits into the right kind of formatting and understand what it is. As far as being an actor, and this is something that I always tell actors, there are so many things that are outside of your control as an actor. You could be, too tall, too short, too black, too white, whatever. Those are things you can't control. So the things that you can control, be 100% amazing at those things. Do your research before you go in for an audition. Know who the director is. Know who, watch the show if it's a show on the air. Read the script. When you're going in for those rooms, be 100% the best at all things that you can control. Be off book. Don't have to read the lines that you're saying them, because those are things that you actually have control over. Tape yourself before you go in and make sure you don't have any weird tics. I had a client who works all the time, and when I started watching her early self-tape, she would always go like this while she was acting. And she was a good actor, but she had a really weird tic, and I pointed it out to her and stopped, and she's worked a lot since. So just be aware of yourself and what you're good at and what you still need to work on, and make those things really good.
I think to your point about doing the research, do the work. If this is a really incredibly hard industry, as I'm sure you're all very keenly aware to that, but if it were easy, everybody would do it, and so you have to be 10 times better than everyone else to that point. And so to my point before about some of the best relationships that I have are people that hustle, and that makes me want to hustle for them. So doing the work, doing the research, and kind of always staying present is really important.
I mean, I agree with Spencer and Katt on this. I mean, it really comes down, I didn't need those teeth. It really comes down to knowing the industry and being aware is everything. I mean, so often you hear people that, or we'll get emails from people or private messages asking questions that they easily could find out by Google. I always say Google is your friend. To me, everything in this business is about how do I get a competitive advantage. Katt talked about that. I mean, it's so competitive that how do I get a competitive advantage? Part of that is every day I'm reading the trades. I know what's going on. If managers are moving from one place to another, agents moving from one place to another, I'm on top of it. I know. If a production company is moving, is just greenlit this kind of film, some sort of genre film, they become a target if you have something like that. And then you start leaning on your relationships. But it's really that awareness that separates people. You have to ask yourself, and you have to think about it. You come to something like this, when this is over, these guys will be standing around probably, and there will still be somebody in this room, I guarantee it. Maybe not now that I'm pointing this out, but somebody will still come up and say, can you read my script? And it's a lack of awareness. It's why you, why now? I always ask that question, those two questions. Why you, why now? And what makes you stand out? Why? Why are they going to read you? You're all looking to do something. Everybody in this business is looking to do something. They're looking to do something. I'm looking to do something. So what separates you from everybody else? And when you start asking those questions, you start putting in the work a little bit more. You start investing time in yourself a little bit more. It becomes as much about the craft as it becomes about, or it becomes as much about navigating the business as it does about the craft. And that's when you start seeing success. So that's my advice there.
Great. Well, I hope you guys had some time to think up some questions since I prompted you a few minutes earlier that we're going to be doing this. So if you have a question, if you could raise your hand, I'll come out and bring you the mic.
So much for your wisdom and your advice. So my question is, when you're specifically when you're thinking about considering somebody to represent, does it carry any weight if the writer has been produced or not? Does that ever come into consideration, or is it really just based on the material? And then secondly, if you have a writer that you're like, okay, this is a good writer, I like them, or whatever, but they're not for me, do you at all take the initiative to say, hey, well, I have an agent over here, you should, you should check out this person that just submitted to me?
I'll take the first part. The first question you asked, which was, does it depend, does it matter, or is it advantageous if that person has been produced before? It all depends on quality. If it's a quality, well-produced piece of material that had a quality producer attached, and it's a great-looking thing to have on your resume, 100% yes. If it's a great credit, a really cool thing. If it's been produced in my grandma's backyard and it's kind of like rinky-dink, then show me something else. Like maybe I would leave with that. It's all about quality.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And as far as being produced, that means so many different things. If your script is being produced by a major studio, that's very different than being produced in Katt's grandma's backyard. You know
It's a lovely place.
Right. So yeah, it really comes down to quality, and quality of the writing, quality of the directing, quality of the acting, whatever it is. That's what we look for. It's just somebody that we're passionate about. One of my colleagues at work says that she wants to sign people that she could jump and scream about how great they are on top of the table. And I really feel the same way. It's like I want to be able to tell the world how great somebody is. If I don't feel that, then me lying and pitching them, I think is not going to serve them well. And as far as referring to I don't really refer to other managers. Really, I've never done that before.
Yeah, I don't know why I would do that.
I've never done that before.
Or
Sorry.
to another agent.
Yeah.
Unless they were like a dear friend and I knew that it was their cup of tea, but
So when considering a manager or an agent, what are some things that we should look out for in terms of contracts or whatever, the legalese of all this is?
I've heard of some people that want to accept payment up front. No, we work for you. You don't need to sign a contract. If I got you a job, for instance, then there would be some standard contract things that are all WGA approved, but you don't need to sign anything, so don't do that.
I agree, but also I want to elaborate because
Yes.
for actors too. So my company does not do contracts. Most big companies don't. There are some small talent agencies that will ask you to sign a contract. They actually cannot they cannot give you a contract longer than a year legally, right?
Yes.
Right. Some of them, and then after that you can renegotiate that. But I'm okay with some small companies having contracts. I personally don't think you should have to have one. I think a contract is an excuse to be lazy. And I think that, it's a handshake and we'll work for you and you will do your job and it'll work out okay. We take 10% across the board. If someone takes more than that, I would run for the hills. You know what I mean? I think agents can't take more than 10%, right? Or can
No,
Right.
10%. If anybody wants more, then just walk away. Also, I would really encourage everyone to, if you have questions, call the WGA. They're there to protect writers.
Or SAG for actors.
Or SAG for actors, yeah. Call your union.
Right, so there are managers, because managers are not really governed by anything, that will try to charge you more than 10%, run for the hills if that happens. That's not good. And yeah, it's, as far as picking the right person, you want to feel it out, you know what I mean? If, you trust your gut in the sense that if you feel like for lack of a better word, icky about a meeting, it's probably not the right person for you. I met with a potential actress yesterday. I was just telling the story before the panel, and she had a manager, and a famous person called the manager that wanted to date her, and the manager was trying to set them up on a date. And she was like, I knew that was the wrong person for me at that point. There was other issues too, but she was like, I didn't want a matchmaker. I want somebody trying to find me. So you want to find someone that you think believes in you, understands what you want from your career, and can give that to you. And it's legal stuff. 10%. no contracts or a year-long contract. Read the fine print, of course. And you know, if you're not good with contracts, find someone that is and have them read it and make sure there's nothing weird in there.
10% handshake was mine, and as far as the relationship, it was all about there was one other manager I was signed with, and I actually went to one of her writers and asked, you know, how has your experience been? And it was eye-opening, because you don't know what that experience is going to be until you're in it. And for her, you know, it was over a year and a half working on one script, and it never went out. And it was one of those things where you sat there, and she ended up leaving. But it was eye-opening for me, because I obviously don't want that. And what that actually led me to do is actually seek out another writer who had that same experience, and then it made me kind of look at what has she done, like what has gone out there. And there wasn't a lot. So it is feeling out, and it's research, and don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask help.
Just one more thing, just back to, if somebody has a clear game plan for you in terms of, okay, I see you, asking you what your goals are, because at the end of the day, we work for you. And if somebody has that kind of clear set game plan, that's a good sign. That's a good sign.
On the other side of that, what do you guys look for when you're having that first meeting with a writer? You already like their material or their reel or anything like that. What are your red flags, or what are you watching out for in terms of them and their personality?
Well, I think yours is going to be a little different. Actors for stress. It's I think different across the board,
Yeah.
whether or not you're an actor, writer, director. But
I mean, look, as far as writing, and I'm sure that Katt will probably say this too, but for a staff of a television show, it has to be someone that showrunner wants to sit in a room with for 10 hours a day. So if you're obnoxious in a meeting and you can't give a good meeting, we can't put you in a meeting with a showrunner to try to get a job. So that's one thing for writers for television. But really, I mean, I'm at the point now in my career where I don't want to work with dicks. I mean, that really is the best way to say it. If someone's going to be like obnoxious, I don't really want to work with them. And other people are not going to want to work with them. I mean, there are obviously still people that are assholes or whatever, you know, in this industry, but I think that people have less tolerance for it now than they used to. So I want somebody that can give a good meeting, somebody that can go into a room and be somewhat dazzling. You know, if you're an actor, you should be able to go into a room and dazzle because that's your job, you know? So it's really be personable, be able to clearly state your goals, you know, and know who you are and what you want out of your career. Because, like I said, if I ask someone, oh, you're a writer, what do you write? And they go, well, I write everything. I have a drama, I have a comedy, I have this. Like, okay, but that doesn't tell me what you want out of your career and where you want to go. So I think that having your own game plan, knowing that the game plan will grow and change, is also really important.
totally. I agree with everything you said.
Hi, I'm Mandy Ekman. I wrote, directed, produced a musical short called Exploit Me. So I wanted to piggyback on a couple of questions. You said why now? You've kind of touched on a couple of the why you, like quality, hustle, but why now? So if you had a dating profile and said what you were looking for in your life right now, what would some of those trends and things that you need in your life or work be?
I think the right why now is, for me, is speaking more towards what is fitting in the market. What, why is this going to be attractive to somebody? Can this, go out there? Are there a lot of homes for that? Okay. For example, and Spencer actually read, again, relationships, Spencer actually read this one. We have this TV pilot now that fortunately is at, like I said, a couple of networks right now being looked at. One of the things
I can say it was good.
I appreciate that. That's the money. One of the things that my manager said to me is, it's period, you're narrowing your audience. It's expensive, you're narrowing your audience. Are you aware of this? This is before I started writing it. And he's like, why do you have to tell this story? Why is this story important to you? And it was important to me because it's a true story that nobody had ever told. It kind of was in my lane of this crime, kind of deal. And it was a story that I felt like really, I wanted to get out there. Now, I totally recognize the fact that there probably wouldn't be a lot of homes for us. And that's why he was kind of discouraging me a little bit. But then he was like, look, as long as you're aware of the fact that, he goes, you know, your why now, yeah, there are people doing this kind of thing. But a lot of people that are doing this kind of thing are very established. You know what I mean? They're David Simons of this world and, you know, that kind of thing. Well, we could give it a run, but, you know, you got to be aware of that. So that was my why now. Like, I felt like it could fit, but I had to be aware of the fact that, you know, why not?
Look, as far as someone who writes features, if it's a great feature, I'm interested in meeting that person, you know? Now, ideally, it's something that we think we can sell, but even if it's a little small feature that shows someone's a really great writer, that's exciting. So, like, why now? If somebody's great, they're great. For television, it's a little different because, if we have, you know, 5 writers at the staff level for comedy, and they're not staffed, which we don't, but if we did, it'd be much harder for me to sign a staff writer level comedy writer at that point, because I need a service who I already have. So that changes depending on who has what job. I mean, we happen to get a lot of our clients that were not staffed this year for staffing season, so we have a couple more openings now. So I can be a little bit more cavalier in trying to find, you know, young comedy writers or whatever it is. So it really depends on what you're writing and what we have at that point. And as far as for actors, I feel like no two actors are the same. So if someone's really special, then I want to sign them. You know, we have several actors that are in their mid-20s and are women. Fine, but they're all really different. You know, so you know they're different races, they have different talents, whatever it is. So it's really dependent on who the person is, what the piece of material is.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think in terms of the why now, it kind of runs the gamut. I mean, the biggest question is, what can I do for you? It's not necessarily, is this the best piece of work I've ever seen? There is a factor in terms of, okay, am I the right person for you? And sometimes I will take a look at a piece of work and say, this is great, but I can't do anything with this because I've got X, Y, and Z going on, and I've got, you know, 3 other people who are kind of in the same zone. But it doesn't, but then there are other times where I'm like, you're very similar to somebody who I work with already, but you're just different enough to where I've got a game plan.
Think about it this way: if we're calling a showrunner to try to get some staff on the show, right? And we're not gonna call and pitch, you know, 6 writers for that job. We're gonna call and pitch 1, maybe 2. You know, so it's like we can't have the same kind of writer at the same level all the time, or else people are not they're gonna get lost in the shuffle immediately, even in a small company. So I think it's important, you know, to have a conversation with somebody and understand if they're the right person for you at the right time, and if not, maybe the right time is later on.
Hi. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, we've been hearing a lot lately about how it's really hard these days to get original IP. So for someone that doesn't have a ton of, resume, do you have any tips in terms of, I'm not a writer, I'm a producer, and I'm trying to help other writers maybe eventually do management. So what avenues are there or really do you just have to like work on an established TV show first, or work on something that was already a novel before you can really get somebody to pay attention to your original script?
I'm confused about what that has to do with IP though.
Just writing something that you wrote yourself, whereas I keep hearing that, sorry, is that me? Whereas I keep hearing that unless it's something that's already been, I'm talking specifically more about film, I guess, but something that's already been proven to be successful, a New York Times bestseller, or a news story that people are familiar with that is very catchy, that it's hard to get people to read it initially. Does that make sense?
For features, yes. The big studios love IP, and production companies love IP, and for television or film, everyone loves it because they often think that it means that there's a proven track record. It doesn't always even always mean that, you know. So if you're writing something original, that's fine. Then it just comes down to us having the relationships to take it out to the right people. You know, if we call someone and they say we're only looking for IP right now, we just won't send it to that person. There's a whole list of people to send it to. So is it hard? Yes, but it's never really easy.
I actually actually don't know if I necessarily agree with the whole IP thing. Truthfully, what I've been hearing over the last few months is that it's incredibly saturated. Everyone has an article, everyone has a podcast, and I think it's what piece of IP you have, and if you as a producer, you said you're a producer, find something that you have really attached to. I don't know if you have a lawyer. There are free basic shopping agreements that your lawyer can send out to try to get that. I think it's about you taking the time to spot things that are actually meaningful. Not necessarily meaningful in terms of, oh my gosh, this is a huge article and I'm finding it. No, but find something, if you are interested in IP, find something that has a perspective and a point of view and has something to say if you want that kind of backup. And then if you have a lawyer, I would say get a shopping agreement and try to acquire it yourself.
Right. I was talking more about original writer. I know a lot of writers in Mexico City where I used to live who do their original content. And I've been a little discouraged lately from hearing, but what you're saying is to not get discouraged, like if something...
Don't get discouraged.
Okay.
If it's good, it's good.
So it's more about relationships and getting people that I know to see
good writing.
content, the good writing.
I mean, all the material I've written has been original. This particular TV thing that we're talking about is based on a true story. And 2 meetings in one day, this happened. Okay, face-to-face meetings, and somebody said, one of the heads of directors of development said, is there existing IP for this? Like, how'd you get all this? And the truth was, it was 6 months of research. I mean, digging up old newspaper articles. Something happened in the late 50s, early 60s. There weren't a lot of books. There weren't, things that were written about it. And there was one book that had to do with the area, and it's 300 pages, and there's literally 5 pages dedicated to this part of the story. And I said, well, yeah, there's, this, I guess we could try to shoehorn in to say that it was based on this, but it's a book that was written 20 years ago and nobody really cares. And they're like, that's okay, that's great. That's fantastic. The next meeting, my producing partner just said, does existing IP matter to you? And we're like, we don't give a shit, this is a great, we love this story. So, again, don't be discouraged by it. Don't just write the best material.
Hi, my name is Keegan, and I think there might be a lot of people in here who have directed films, and you've spoken a lot to writers and staff and stuff. Can you just speak a little, or maybe just verify, as a director, someone who wants to maybe direct episodic or features, and maybe is written but doesn't really want to be a writer, wants to direct, is still sort of the best things like go win a festival, go get some heat, and then that's how you're going to get the meeting that's going to open doors to episodic and stuff like that. You still just like go make something great and you'll get noticed.
In terms of directors, absolutely having your kind of signature piece be something that speaks to you as an artist, yes. There are also a ton of directors programs in television that I think applying to is really beneficial. Also, this is a lot easier said than done, but shadowing on a television show, whether that's knowing a line producer, knowing a DP, knowing somebody who can get you into shadow an episode of a director, that's huge. That's everything. And then once you're there, once you're on set, no matter where you are as a director, it's walking a fine line, and I'm really speaking for television, it's walking a fine line between having everyone on set know who you are and being friendly and approachable, and also observing, because whether you're directing an episode of television as a guest director or shadowing, you're a guest. But so it's kind of an interesting personality balance once you're actually there. But yeah, you definitely have to keep creating and creating things that you're passionate about. That's crucial.
Hi guys, this is a great panel. Thank you so much. For kind of sending out scripts, we've talked a lot about that, but could you guys talk a little bit about work in progress, kind of, or like sizzle trailers or proof of concepts if you're actually a writer-director like myself who goes out and shoots and edits her own content, could you talk a little bit about what sending that sort of material out looks like and what like a great, I hear like under 5 minutes needs to be what your sizzle looks like, a minute trailer or, a 20-minute pilot. Could you just talk a little bit about people who make their content as opposed to sending a script in, what that looks like?
It's a good question. I think that it really depends on the person, the piece of material. If you're looking for like an independent film, you're talking about independent film, then yeah, a proof of concept or a trailer is fine. I think ultimately it's the script itself that's going to sell, and if you can really show your directing style in a video. So that's I think more important than saying it has to be X minutes long or whatever it is. It's like if the idea is to sell a script with you attached as a director, we need to be able to have the ammunition to say this person deserves to direct this movie. So that's really what you should be looking for. It's if you have a great script, and then this is what I can do with a camera, and this is what it costs me to do that with a camera or whatever. Then then it's like a calling card for you as a writer director.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting balance, because if you're going to go and shoot something that's a proof of concept or a sizzle, you're most likely using your own money to do that. And so while I would advise anyone who's shooting something to make things look as good as possible for a presentation, you're also using your own money. And that's your prerogative. But it's kind of our job to tell you, do we need to do this or not? Like, not every project needs it. I think some certainly do, especially if you are going to be directing it. Especially, I find it in comedy, it really helps, especially if you're hitting a certain comedic tone that might be not necessarily broadcast. It's definitely helpful. It's helpful if you have other kind of links. I mean, even if you don't have a proof of concept for a project that we're taking out, but you have other links like comedy shorts or stuff on Funny or Die or YouTube sketches that are actually well shot, well produced, and have kind of good value to them, good production value. That's always helpful. Sending links along with projects to kind of give the buyer an indication of who you are as an artist.
Think of it as like your arsenal, right? Like you have to have all the things you need to be able to go with. So the more stuff you have to show what you're trying to get across, the better it is for you. That's really the best way to think about it, is like, what do I need to prove that I can do this? And if you don't have that, then make that.
One more.
Hi, my name is Stahler, and thanks again for doing the panel. I have a couple questions, but first I'll ask like about the gatekeeper mentality. Like when you're young, and you're like, man, how do you even get in touch with management? And you're like you said, referrals and things like you find that out really quickly when you go to pitch festivals. They're like, don't hand me your card, can't do anything with it, that kind of thing. So then you resort to, like you said, you like spend your own money to make content and you're like, this is me. I got great advice from a Stage 32 pitch one time. Somebody was like, your script is amazing, the budget is too low for us to even think about it. And he was like, listen, this is what you should do, kid. You should make exactly the thing that only you can make, and then that's what they'll know you for, because it's the only time in your life, if you make it, that you'll be able to do whatever you want without having everyone have a say in it. So my question is it a good idea to just go and make that feature on your own, try to do it, and see if that's what shakes your career loose? Or do you pursue management and things like that when you only have shorts under your belt, but you know that you can do it? I know that's a weird question.
What budget are you talking about? You said very low budget.
Well, so like I was pitching a film that was like 500,000 to $1 million, and they're like, we don't do anything under like 10 million, like that kind of thing, which is common. And it's like, honestly, the film would be done for 10 million, but I know as a debut, I'm never going to get 10 million. So it's like, we're going to make it for 500,000. That's less relevant than like, is it a good idea to go shoot your feature and just don't ask permission, just do your thing and try to see what shakes out at festivals and things like that to meet the people that refer you.
What are you talking about the shorts?
I'm just a big believer in controlling as much as you can control. I really am. I mean, especially in this day and age right now in this business with so much content being created and so much competition. I mean, look, the lower the bar of entry, the more people that are hopping over the bar, right? And, you know, with the price of equipment coming down, the price to produce things coming down, the amount of outlets you have out there to distribute your own content and everything like that, there's just more than ever before. So again, it comes back to, you know, why you, why now? And part of being able to control why you, why now is controlling your own content. So, you know, I talked earlier about that indie drama script. One of the first things that David said to me is, you know, you either do one or two things with this. He goes, you either stick it in a drawer or you go direct it. I couldn't go direct it at the time. I was way too busy. I just couldn't do it. But that was, you know, at the time I was like, man, that's really shitty advice. I'm like, was he crazy? Like, no, go, if you like it, go take it out there. But then, you know, I learned a little bit more that the market was saying no, and it was going to be a tough thing to do. And then the other part of it was like, I'm not ready to direct the future. Like, hell, I don't have time to do this. But he was right. I mean, he definitely was right. And to me, I mean, right now is such an interesting time, like I said earlier, that if you really believe, and by the way, I want to add one more thing to this. You pitch to somebody, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I just want to make the point. Did you do the research to know that they don't produce films in that budget range?
I knew well and good that they make bigger stuff.
Okay.
But it was honestly putting myself in the lion's den, so I would never be afraid again, which I told you last night.
Which is great. I mean, which is fantastic. Because the reason I ask that question is because we get this all the time. We will get executives that are, you know, they work in horror and people come in and pitch them comedy. And that's on you. You know what I mean? Not on you, but I'm saying that's on the person pitching. And it happens all the time. And this is what we talked about earlier about educating yourself and knowing your targets and knowing what you're doing and everything like that. But the bigger thing to me today, like I said, not to repeat myself 50 times, but the more you can control, the more you can, you know, handle. And that includes doing the research and knowing who your targets are and everything like that. The shorter your path to success, in my opinion, if you handle it right.
I think as far as shooting your own thing, it really is project specific. I mean, a really quick story. One of my clients, he's an actor, and he's written before, but he's primarily an actor. He runs a Shakespeare company, and he was doing some kind of a weird, immersive King Lear thing. Like, you know, it's weird and different, and he had an idea to make it as a movie. Now, that's not an easy sell to any studio or whatever, so he just went and shot it. And he shot it for very cheap. It's all in one room. He found a way to do something that would probably never sell. Now he's got a really great calling card movie to use. So in that case, it was right to go and shoot it. If it had been a different idea, it would have been right to go and sell it. I just really think it depends on the idea.
That King Lear movie sounds really cool. I like that.
It's really good.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not Bank of Katt. I don't, you know, it's not my responsibility to handle people's finances, which I think is a common misconception. So it seems like you want to go and do it.
I'm gonna do it.
Because I think, yeah, exactly. You wouldn't have asked that question if you didn't want to go and do it. So I think your question was just to get validation. It seems like you want to do it, so it seems like
It was more of like, is it a good idea?
just make it look good.
Yeah, well,
Just make it look really, really good and get the best people you can possibly get. Don't make it look bad. Good advice.
Awesome. So we're going to wrap up here shortly. The one thing I want to ask you guys to do, I know this will take a couple seconds, so I have a few announcements after that while you're doing it. Everyone's been really polite and had their phones away, but now is your chance to take out your phone, take a picture of the panel, take a picture of all the banners behind and everything, and post those, share them on Twitter and Instagram, tag @Stage32 and @Stage32 online, Twitter, Instagram. We have a little announcement that was slipped to me that there was a typo on the wherever the schedule is printed out. On Sunday, there is a 11 a.m. panel. So apparently it was left off in some way. There is a panel at 11 a.m.
what is that? What is that?
That is a great question. All I was told was it's Sunday morning. Sunday at 11 a.m.
Distribution, how to get your short film seen.
Distribution, how to get your short film seen. So that's Sunday at 11 a.m. Real quick, if I know you guys, a couple of you have Twitter handles that you can share if people want to reach you, RB.
Twitter and obviously on Stage 32. If you do sign up, you'll see my mug on your wall immediately. Feel free to say hi. I respond. That's an automated message, but I do respond to everybody that responds to me.